of the sharpiest of cutting edgiest hardware. Apple is promising that it will change how we will work and play. The Vision Pro is said to usher in a new age of spatial computing. Okay, marketing aside, we dove deep into Apple's thoughtful UI systems and best practices that make the device feel effortless to use. Let's check out our R&D. Our R&D. Our R&D. Check out our R&D. Well, hey, this is Brett Bagenstos. I am the owner and founder of NeoPangea, Baron of Pixels. With me, I have Matt Althouse.
Hey, it's me. Hi, I'm
Matt,
Matt
we
Oldhouse.
have been working together professionally in some capacity for like 20 years. Why aren't you sick of me yet?
Brett, you're always a joy to be around. It's always something new. Wish we were working together even sooner.
All right, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Matt Oldhouse. I'm an experienced designer here at Neo, and actually the creative lead for understanding on this project in particular how we can design for the Apple Vision Pro. Um, so we love exploring new and exciting technologies, and Apple's Vision Pro is definitely new and exciting. All can't wait to get our hands on it. To get the process started, we started diving in and gathering as much information on the Vision OS and how we're going to design to it as possible. We created and gathered a lot of information for our team, but basically we wanted to distill some of that down and present it to you guys. I don't know. Let's dive in. You ready?
Yeah, our first augmented reality project was in 2009, back when you had to hold up a printed ad to your webcam. I think it was even in Flash. Back when AR was for the web and it was in its infancy, but research and development has been part of our DNA always since we started this company. So naturally, digging into spatial computing for this talk, specifically UX principles. Um, well, we have some cool things in the works over here that we can't share with you, but we can share our research with you, so you don't have to do the research as well. Now, we pulled these assets that we're going to show as visuals as part of like the Apple's promo videos and developer documentation, so we're not breaking any confidentiality. But if you have any questions, put them in the LinkedIn comment box, and we will try our best to do this. This is our first LinkedIn Live. Bear with us. There was an echo earlier. I hope it's fixed. Go ahead, Matt. So sorry.
Man, here we go. Sweet. The first thing we're going to actually talk about here is the user. Apple's hope for the Vision Pro is that it can be a long-term wearable. And when we're designing for the experience, we want to create ways to decrease the user's fatigue and actually prioritize their comfort. This can be
I
done
don't
in
like the term user.
you
I've
don't
never
like the
liked the
term user,
term. That's
the
like a
wearer.
drug addict. Drug addicts are user. Are these like headset
I
wearing
think they want you
hippies?
to be addicted to it, so you are going to be a user of it.
Oh, okay, I got it. I got it. Okay, I got you.
The wearer. We'll use the
The
wearer.
wearer,
So this can
the
be done in a
experience addict.
few different ways. The experience addict, such as allowing apps to work when you're in a seated position. We can set apps to also target a user's natural line of sight, so they're not always going to appear right in front of you. Your eyes, tracking up, looking, such as guy here on the couch looking up. The app window can follow that. We can also want to avoid strenuous hand gestures within our apps. Um, and then our apps should launch in their own windowed experience to avoid disrupting the user's current workflow. Apps should work within any room's environment. We all have different room sizes, but our app shouldn't dictate whether or not shouldn't be dictated by whether or not an app is actually or a room is large or small. And we want to consider the dimensions of our app. So, such as seen in this upper image here of the video, wide apps are actually better than tall. We naturally kind of look left and right. So you can kind of see here from the degrees 30, 60, and 90. It's easier to scan horizontally. And then lastly, Content should feel connected and grounded into the environment. So this can be achieved by casting shadows, reflections, light from our app window or the design into the room itself, just to give it that grounded feel and make it feel connected into our space.
Two things that like stuck with me the most about all of this is that one, this is augmented reality first. This is in mixed reality. This isn't VR. So all the other VR headsets are VR first, and then there's kind of a pass-through experience. This is like AR first. So it's interesting to think about everything we're going to go through from that perspective, that they're not trying to immerse you in a world first. They're just
Yeah,
trying to immerse things in your world.
yeah.
Um, and then also like everything needs to feel natural, like it is in your world. And fatigue is very important. Like if you're in VR walking around, standing around, moving your arms all day, you're going to get tired. They want you to be able to be in this virtual or be in your space with virtual elements and make sure you aren't strained.
Mhm.
Hence that the guy in the lower image is just chilling. I want to.
Yeah.
You're just gonna lay in your bed with a headset on, looking at the ceiling.
Yeah. So two things are really interesting. Just what you just said is that Apple doesn't even refer to anything as AR. It's a spatial experience. So they're dropping the whole notion and trying to come up with their own term to get you out of that thought process of AR. And a long-term wearable, the device, they want you to feel comfortable. The device itself is actually kind of heavy when someone's wearing it for 30 minutes plus. So I think the idea of allowing someone to feel as comfortable as possible in order to allow them to feel like they are comfortable and can wear it for extended periods of time is really what they're after. In the future, I'm sure that'll decrease version 2, 3. But yeah, uh, it's cool stuff.
Sure is, Matt. That's super cool stuff. This is the future.
It's the future. We're living in it. All right, so we've been talking about the user, but let's actually talk about design. So our apps actually start with the icon design, which we're looking at here. So icons inside the Vision Pro can be constructed with up to 3 layers. You can see that in the video example above and the static layers below. We have a base, mid, and upper. Essentially, these layers combine into a stack to create depth and subtle movement while a user scans about looking for apps to open. Something to note is that the effect appears to work best by keeping layers solid versus applying opacity. And again, you can see this between what Apple has demonstrated here between yes and no examples. And uh, the other thing I just think that is cool about this is, it is creating this real sense of movement. It helps you feel more connected to the app, even from the start before you even get in, just by applying this subtle motion effect to it, which is similar to things that Apple's been doing in other situations. But this layer, this parallax, it's just a nice little, just little effect.
Well, yeah, it's subtle, but very thoughtfully integrated. But what I love about it is that the continuity across all their OS. So you got like the shift elements on your phone, you got the layering on hover on your Apple TV. They've been planning this, if you follow the sequence of events, for years now, and it's just leading up to this, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, continuity. There's a number of items that they just are elevating one step further, but it's all that same continuity that they're starting to include from all the
And I
number
want
of
to
the
say this,
platforms.
I'll go on the record. I have a PC. I don't have a Mac, so I'm not a total Mac fanboy, but I do appreciate all of
So next up, so how about the UI? What does the UI look like? Well, I'm so glad you asked. The Glass
it. I
UI
didn't ask.
is
I'm just telling you.
is the new visual design system within Vision OS. So it essentially consists of subtle opacity that allows a hint of your room's environment to bleed into the window. This subtle effect basically helps windows feel integrated into your space. Um, I'm not sure if it's a requirement or must or how it actually plays into their design language, but they recommend avoiding opaque windows. So solid fills, it end up doing the reverse effect by feeling heavy and disconnected from the room. Another item to note is that the Glass UI uses white fills as a native targeting state on their buttons. So as we're designing apps, we might want to look to avoid white fills as our standard button treatment. Again, all these items are up in the air until we actually get our hands on it. But it's kind of the direction that Apple's doing and provides recommendations against it. Also, rounded corners are used throughout the UI, which is more than just a design choice. The rounded corners aid in drawing your eye into the center of the content. So you'll notice the rounded corners, on the window itself, but on all their app, UI icons. So we tested it, just out of curiosity, using a square box versus applying the corners to it, and your eye does feel like it navigates more into the center of the content. So
Mm.
interesting little
I just,
subtle design choice.
yeah, I just love those reflections when you move your perspective. It really makes you feel like the UI is part of your room. It's just so
Mhm.
subtle and sexy.
Yeah, the specular highlights that they put on the edges, seen down there on the lower right, picking up just on, yeah, as you said, as you would navigate or look on it, some little shifts would catch the edge of there, creating just the lighting effects. Super cool. So what that was the glass UI, but let's talk about some hover states real quick. So if you're familiar with the Apple UI interfaces, such as the Apple TV, you'll recognize the glow effect that is used inside of their hover effects here. Basically, it's the shine effect that hovers as your eye is tracking over top of
It's so
a hit
shiny.
area. So again, from a continuity standpoint, it's something that is very consistent with what they're doing. And then we do actually need to account for the hover effect inside of our designs. You'll see here that in this video example above, that the hover bleeds outside a little bit with some padding, and then they're outlining the padding and the image down below, just to note that this is where the effect is stopping. So as we're going through, if we're using the native UI features, that we should make sure we're accounting for the effect that's going to be applied, so we're not creating overlap with our UI buttons.
Yeah, but you should note that this is eye tracking, right?
Yes, eye tracking
Yeah,
that's going over.
yeah, that's awesome. It's not like you're pointing at stuff with your hand controller. You're
Yeah,
literally looking at that, and
yeah,
it's
all eye tracking,
reacting.
and then just a little tap of your fingers, and you're open to it. I think
Yeah,
you can talk to it too, so you
it's
probably could tell
magic.
if it's open.
It's just magic. There's
It's
little
crazy,
fairies and elves in there doing this stuff. But
crazy stuff.
yeah, because we built plenty of VR experiences where you don't have a hand controller, so you have to like move your head to move a reticle to select things. And while it was clever, it wasn't natural or like I mean, it was janky. Let's just be honest, it's janky. But just being able to look at things and also select them again effortlessly. You're just that dude laying in the bed, just staring at the ceiling, moving their eyes, selecting things.
Yeah.
You're not even moving.
Yeah, I'm sure it was talked about internal, but when the iPhone came out, it was a big deal that you didn't have to use some sort of, uh, you know, uh, pencil type device of whatever the heck they're called, in order to navigate and touch on your screen. You can use your finger. That was the big push with that. And with this, again, there's no interactive device other than just using your fingers, your hands. So you don't have to have that external piece of hardware. Um, just one thing, you tap with your fingers and you go. Um, Wild stuff. So dynamic scale. This is an interesting concept to talk about. So what is it? Dynamic scale applies to elements scaling along the z-axis. This is an idea of having an element retain its current size regardless of how far it's pushed back in space. You can kind of see this demonstrated in the top video example above, where they're trying to use the boxes in order to represent this in this current shift right here. Um, the alternative to the dynamic scale is actually fixed scale, which allows elements to shrink as they're pushed back inside of the axis. Dynamic scale is often preferred for items that would be pertaining to UI elements. We want these elements to retain their current hit state and be visible, no matter how far back they're pushed into space. But Fixed scale might be preferred for times when we want to have objects create a sense of depth by pushing them back and having them scale in space. So you're not required to use dynamic scale. However, it's an option when we're pushing elements back inside of windowed spaces. So, if you were to imagine that if you had your window, you push it all the way back there. Now, while Apple's recommending a 60-point hit area, if you push it back too far, your hit area is now too small and you can't actually interact. So, if you push it too far back, you wouldn't even be able to close or get out of it. But it's a interesting concept to grasp. It was
Yeah.
fascinating to
And
uncover.
the documentation made me angry, but when using it, it's basically like for interfaces, you want them to be easily interacted with. So if they're here in your space, you move away, they need to scale up so they retain their size so you can still interact with them. But if it's something that's like set dressing or something that's fixed in your room, when you walk away with it, it scales appropriately to the depth of your room. So interfaces
Exactly.
like scale as you move away from them.
No, exactly. All right. So we've been talking about windowed experiences, but what about something that's a little bit more immersive? So let's talk about full space experiences, which is an immersive experience that extends beyond your window, transforming the space around you. Um, and this is a single app focused experience where versus the windowed experience, which is capable of having multiple apps open at once. So you consider that the windowed experience, you'd be using that if you're, in a workspace type of environment, and a immersive or a full space experience if we're dealing with something that's more entertainment related. Um, an app should be capable of running as a windowed or full spaced experience. A user should actually control the start of a full space experience. So it should start in a windowed space, and allow the user should then be allowed to decide if they want to activate it into a full space. And full space experiences, again, should feel connected to the environment by casting shadows and light and reflections into the room. We can see that in the example above with the light and being casted from the TV movie screen, and our shoe inside of this a more AR spatial space with the shadows being casted on the ground. Which I think the lower example is a very interesting idea of shopping. And the idea that you have this full space, you're engaged with it, but it's minimal content that's on screen, and you're kind of just engaged, being able to really envision this object as 3D. I can see spinning around, growing it, shrinking it. But yeah, it all feels connected by incorporating the shadows and lights into the
Yeah, I
space.
love that interfaces are like casting light and there's shadows. Because again, AR mode is priority here. They're trying to make that UI feel like it's part of your natural environment. It's not like a layer on top. It's like literally just there in the room with you.
Mhm. Uh, yeah, the transition. We'll look into this immersive experience. So another way we can actually interact with apps is through an immersive experience. So we had windowed, full space, and now an immersive experience. So with an immersive experience, the room environment actually fades away, and apps the experience surrounds you. Um, Something to note is that the transition between full space or full space and immersive experiences should feel fluid and subtle. An app's edge is actually feathered on the outside in order to ease that transition, and the motion shouldn't feel jarring. And then while moving in an immersive experience, an app will actually fade away. So you can kind of see that in the middle two examples, the images here, where you're starting in a immersive experience, but as you get up and move, the experience will fade away. So avoid bumping into objects inside the room if you're going to start moving around. Um, we also want to always provide the user with a way to exit an immersive experience by providing, something as simple as a close exit button. And then we can take a look in the lower right here with the image. You can really helps to demonstrate the idea between, something that might start as windowed to, your levels of transition into, from windowed into full space, and an immersive experience where immersion can just make you feel like, not just, halfway around you in the examples here, but fully engulfed, like you're in a completely different spot.
Yeah. So since like other applications or AR first, using this like immersive mode is when you want to get rid of distractions. So you want it's like the new full screen mode for your computer. You just want to like turn everything off and just focus on this one immersive app.
Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, in case there's those of you out there that aren't super aware of what's actually happening here, the Apple Vision Pro has cameras all around it, and it's broadcasting your room environment into the screen. So you're not seeing through the glass itself. There's, monitors in your screen, but the cameras outside are projecting the room in there. So this is basic concept where we're able to fade out the what would be a full space experience and project the room. So that's how you're seeing this content through, even though you're wearing a solid piece of glass in front of your face.
Yeah. I like that. I love that there's a dial on top where you can like enter and exit full screen immersive mode. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like, could you have many immersive applications open at once? So you could like be watching television in a giant screen with a friend, but then also playing like Angry Birds.
I would think that it would work. You mentioned your PC. I'm on a Mac, and I have run multiple full space experiences, being able to just swipe over between them at once. So I would think that if you're inside one, there would be a way that you can somehow navigate into another one that you have open, and even go back into another space that would be windowed. It wasn't something that it really popped up when I was doing the research for any of this, but sounds like a viable thing that could happen. Whether or not I would assume there's enough processing power in it, but yeah, I would love, especially I think of it from a workspace environment. If I wanted to have, if we bring design applications to this, and I want to be able to swipe from something from like Photoshop to Illustrator to Figma or whatever, all inside of one space, I'd be able to do that in toggle between full spaces for all of them.
Yeah.
So I guess time will tell.
Yeah. So there's one feature that like is beautiful but also makes me so mad is when you turn the dial or you're using an app and you go into full immersive mode and then you can see like a little ghosted person of someone if they enter the space. I hate that because I love messing with people when they're in VR. So they're like playing a game and I like hit them with a pillow or something. I
I,
can't sneak up to people anymore. I'm
You're gonna have
mad.
to
I'm
shoot
gonna
him with
write a
Nerf
letter.
darts from across the room. I wonder too. From like it's a great feature. I get why it happens, but if you have someone that's if you're wearing this watching a movie or doing work and you're in this full immersive space, like is it going to disrupt like your viewing experience every time someone would walk across the like what's the correlation? Maybe it's smart enough to know someone's about to engage with you versus someone just entering in and out of the room space, but you have to wait and see, I guess. But yeah, I didn't think of it from the ability of messing with somebody, but I get that. I get the negative side effect of that too.
Yeah.
So, how are we going to actually interact with this device? Well, again, great question. And let's talk about spatial input. So, within the Vision Pro, our eyes function as the mouse pointer, also known as eye tracking. Um, and in addition to eye tracking, we can also use hand gestures. So the Vision Pro's many cameras capture, what we're interacting with all around us, and gestures are done and captured the same way. And we can capture our gestures can be captured inside of a resting position, such as on your lap. And this idea is that it'll avoid fatigue. So we aren't going to be reaching our hands out while you can, and we'll touch on that. But basic gestures can just be performed as you're in a solid, resting space, having them right there on your lap. And something to keep in mind with gestures is they should be comfortable, again, reliable, accessible, to everybody, when we're engaging with them.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, we're battling fatigue here, so people can like keep their hands in their lap with subtle movements. But my wife's Italian, and she immediately said that diagram looks like the "How to Speak Italian" meme. I'm sorry.
Well, it does. Coming from someone that would know, right? Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of gestures that are on here that I feel would most likely cover a variety of anything that you're going to actually interact with. but there are custom gestures, and so we can take a look at uh, the custom gestures state. So custom gestures are, I mean, canned gestures are great, but we have the ability to create custom gestures in order to better fit something inside of our app, whether it's a unique experience that would be better to define something unique versus what is canned. These gestures should be different from the built-in gestures, obviously, but they also need to be easy to perform, and they need to not be open for interpretation. So if we're going to create a custom gesture, it needs to, you got to make sure that it can be performed every single time without issue. It's not too complicated, and there's no question about what you're actually supposed to be doing when you're trying to demonstrate to the person how that gesture actually functions.
Hmm.
No general examples of someone creating a custom gesture, but we can get the idea that you're doing something wild here, but
You know what I'm
we
gonna
don't
do?
want it to be too crazy.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make a dab it up game. So like you progress through levels like dapping up people, slapping and bapping and bumping and fist bumping all the way to the top of the leaderboard.
There you go. I'm
Would you
game.
play it?
I'm game.
You play it?
Yeah, 100%.
That's
Let's
not a
make it.
good
What are we waiting
um,
for? What are we
I don't know. I'm still taking investors.
I can't fund that. So our last form of using gestures is actually direct touch. So this might involve a user reaching out to perform a physical action. Something that we can keep in mind is that these types of interactions can cause fatigue and should not be overused. Because there's no actual tactile response from touching something, we need to make up for this with other visuals and sounds, and we can do this by providing proximity lighting and motion and audio, you know, indications back to a user. And we can kind of see how all this is demonstrated in the video above, where you fingers getting close to the object that will be out in front of you. It's not physically there, but you know that you're getting close to it because there's proximity lighting associated with it. You would have sounds that could be associated with you actually tapping the key, and we do the same thing, or can see the same thing with the user reaching out and touching the screen where there's proximity lighting, letting them know that they got close enough. And in the instance where they pick up and scale the plane here, it actually has a slight lighting effect applied to it to let you know that it's you can interact with it. But these are the canned ones that are there. There's other ways that you can create direct touch, such as through a game specific type of applications, or the idea of fruit ninja, slicing fruit in front of you, or the using record players, or records for scratching DJ type situations. So yeah, a lot of ideas that could be used here in order to
Yeah.
for gestures and
I
games and stuff.
yeah, I keep thinking about, those like subtle haptics that are on your phone. So when you're typing, it's like click, 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 click,
Mhm.
click, and you find that little vibration in your hand. I keep thinking like it'd be interesting if they don't have this, but it'd be interesting if they put like a haptic in the headset. So there would be like if you're tapping on that direct touch keyboard that's floating in front of you, if it would like do a little tap 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 on your head in the interface, and uh you would just like feel it in your hands in some kind of Pavlovian response. I wonder if your mind would associate that
Associated,
tapping with something physical.
yeah. Possibly, crazy stuff. Well, the stuff that they do with spatial audio to make it sound like things are coming from
Mm,
different directions.
yeah.
Maybe whatever they do in the future, comes up with something similar too. I think haptics would be interesting. I'd be curious, if they. I'm sure it was tested whether or not having some sort of haptic response, whether it's like on the back of your head or sides of the glasses or something like that, kind of indicates creating that similar feeling that you're actually have touched something. But I don't know. I can't wait to play with it and find out
Mm,
what all it's doing. So that was all that we ended up having presented, though we do have some examples that we can look at real quick before we can open it up for questions. So just taking a look at our last slide here, just some few aspirational examples. where we can kind of notice a few of the things that we talked about here. So in the top left corner image here is just a great example of kind of like a workspace, utilizing the window experiences. We can have multiple windows open at one time. You can, navigate between them. I'm really excited to see what, from a workspace and, application, this is going to end up looking like for us in the future. And then we have the, AR style version here, but this is a great example with the, Disney, the
Electric light parade
parade,
illumination.
casting
I love
all
how
the
it's
lights,
casting on your counter. It's so
yeah,
cool.
casting all the lights on there, and we have it scaled on a counter. I'm sure you'd be able to scale this up super large. Can you get it large enough that actually you put it on your street and makes it feel like you're there with fireworks happening at any time of the year? Be super
Disney will
wild.
never allow it. You have to go to experience that magic
Gotta go.
yourself.
Well, and then the direct touch type of ideas here. We have the record player,
Yeah,
your
I love
DJ.
that DJ game. I
Um,
play that. If I played that, would you come over and watch me DJ?
I would record that. That's the funniest video. And then the examples that we had inside of Apple's presentation provided, Disney's comps here, where they did one for, if you're watching, The Mandalorian, where they had all these spaces. So what's interesting here is the concept. Well, it's relatively clipped, but they had different types of windows. So we looked at the glass UI, but I do think that we'll be able to design different types of styles and within our applications. We won't just be restricted to the standard glass UI types of interfaces. So I think we'll see some evolution there as we get our hands, and able to develop into that space. And
Yeah.
then the ESPN example is really cool too, where you have all these different games, and whether or not it's too much all at once, I don't know. But there's a lot happening here, and it's super cool just to be able to kind of, if you want to get all the stats that you can, you can do that. And then the last one, just the nice little hello that Apple tossed up inside there, just to
Mhm.
demonstrate something being casted into your space, something real simple.
Yeah. Well, I
But
think the
yeah.
most interesting is in the upper left because like Apple sees the Vision as a desktop replacement, not a
Mhm.
phone replacement. So this is like not just like immersing things in your space, but a way to do your normal work in the future.
Mhm.
So I can see how this is like not only going to make your desktop infinite, so you can have many apps open and take advantage of three-dimensional space in your applications. Just thinking about how that's going to be play through the desktop apps that you use now kind of hurts your brain a little bit. But also then like subtly, like maybe make working from home less lonely. So you could have like a virtual workspace where you're not just in a VR Teams meeting with someone, but you're co-working. We did that sometimes over COVID too. We just set up a video feed and you just have somebody working and you just have presence of someone and that made it feel less lonely. But if you're in VR and you kind of, um, have their avatar in there, you can just be
Mhm.
working or like, just conversating occasionally, but just working and not being lonely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the work application. I get it from 100% from the entertainment point of view. I don't feel like I would be the target audience just to get it for pure entertainment. But if I would be 100% willing to, try this, at least early adopter, as an early adopter, I should preface it that. But, the workspace idea where, we're currently working between 2, 3 monitors, all the time. If I can now enter apps open all over the place, but if I can have this on a giant infinite canvas, I can put myself, I could put myself inside of another location. I could be working, remote from anywhere, even though I'm in
Mhm.
my, house or whatever.
And I can
It's
get up
really
real
cool.
close and be like, Matt, you got to move that all these pixels over two more pixels.
That's right.
But
Uh,
yeah, if you're in like immersive Microsoft Teams mode and it crashes, I think you're gonna puke. And speaking of
so
lonely, is it lonely up there in space?
I it's space is lonely, but this is my one of my favorite rooms to be in. It's so quiet and peaceful. We gotta activate the gravity anti-gravity in here though. I'm still waiting for that.
Oh man. Well, thank you for walking us through it, man. That was awesome. I hope people got a lot of good information from this talk. But I'm gonna put the PDF of the presentation with heads, even more slides in it, in the comments so you can download it. And I can't wait to show everyone what we're up to.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys for
Yeah. Well,
coming
thanks,
out.
Matt.
Yeah. Thanks for having
Thanks,
me.
Matt. This
Let's
is
do it
great.
again.
All right. Hey, good luck with your re-entry into the atmosphere.
Thank you. I hope I don't burn up.
I'll miss you a lot if you do.
Oh, thanks. I miss you too. So we do.